March 15th, 2026, 9:45 p.m. Gosh, this looks so bad. All this, and this is eczema, by the way. I don't do drugs. Somebody could drug test me right now. I don't do drugs. Um, Angel Martinez, he was the youngest. David's the oldest. Patty, she's Patricia, I guess. Patty, she's middle, and she has a son, little Ray. Well, he's not little anymore. His mother and father were together when he and I got together. His mother didn't like me. She was racist, as far as I can tell. She did not like me. She would intentionally speak Spanish around me so that I felt stupid until I learned Spanish. And then she didn't want to speak Spanish around me, but then I would speak Spanish to his father, Jose. Um, his parents got divorced um, down the line. And then his father, like his mother, ended up moving in with family in Los Angeles and still trying to be a seamstress. And his father was a mechanic. So he ended up getting a house and getting a new girlfriend and having a good life, I thought. And by that time, Angel moved away to um, Pittsburgh. He was close to his other brother. Uh, I forgot his name. Very handsome man. Kind of like he looked very similar to Angel. And so he would go and visit him over time. And then eventually Angel got with his Middle Eastern girl who started harassing me on social media. And she would always send me Instagrams. And it would be like, oh, I have your guy, but it would be like in Iranian or Iraq, like in Arabic, excuse me, in Arabic or something. I would have to translate it just to find out what it was saying. And it was basically, she was saying, ha, ha, I have your man and stuff. And I left it alone, but it was every day for like a good month. And I kept telling Angel, like, it has to be her. I said, she's Middle Eastern. I don't know any Middle Easterners that I would send me stuff like this. I said, the minute that she knew about me, all of a sudden this stuff started being sent to me on Instagram. And then eventually she ended up on the terrorist screening database, well, on the watch list. I did a background check of her like maybe months later, and I found that she was on the, sorry, I have itches right now. I found out that she was being, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, she was on the watch list. Man, there's nowhere to put this. All right. Anyway, going back. Angel's mother made sure that I didn't feel welcome. His father seemed cool. Angel and I were together almost a whole year. He had friends, Doug, Daryl, and Evelyn. Evelyn was with, I guess her name was Amber. Um, Ephraim used, I say that she was a blanket girlfriend. Ephraim had no respect for her. He cheated on her constantly. Everybody knew it. My eyes were only for Angel. I was so about Angel, and I think his friends were jealous. And I remember one time we were at Doug and Daryl's apartment, and they were like, let's go in the jacuzzi and hang out. And I think that they put something in my drink. Actually, probably didn't. That's when I drank a lot. And I was pretty buzzed, on the borderline of drunk, but I was still coherent. So that's why it was weird. And I remember I blacked out, like I was in the jacuzzi. Yeah, and one of them gave me a drink, so I think they roofied me. And Angel was inside with one of the other friends, but I think Doug and Ephraim were in the jacuzzi with me. And I blacked out, and when I came back to, Ephraim was touching me in my private area. And then I blacked out again. And then I heard Angel's voice saying, yeah, I'm not doing this, I'm leaving. And then I came back to after I heard his voice, and like Ephraim was kissing me. And, I was like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? Like, get off me. And I got out of the jacuzzi, and I was like, Angel, like, wait, like, I'll drive home. But he actually had Doug and Daryl drove him. And then Amber left Ephraim there, and I was crying, and I was just like, oh my God. And so I just decided to get out of the jacuzzi, get out of my bathing suit. I put on a towel to dry off, and then I decided to fall asleep in, I think it was Doug's room. And I should have locked the door, but I left it unlocked because I knew that Daryl had to go to work the next day, and I didn't want him to not be able to get his clothes. I think it was Daryl's room. I didn't want Daryl not to be able to get his clothes because the door was locked. So I left it unlocked. And Ephraim decided that he would orally RAPE me. And the only reason that I know this is because when I woke up, I realized, well, I got up and I was like, oh my God, what happened? I remembered everything that happened that I could recall, that I was kissing Ephraim, that he was touching me, and Angel left with Doug and Daryl. And that's all that I remembered, and then I got up and then I went to bed, took off my bathing suit and went to bed in the towel. But the towel was off of me when I woke up. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, did something happen? And I started crying, and Doug came in and Doug gave me a hug, and I was like, where's Angel? He said he left. And I said, I got to find him. I was still hungover. And then I went to Angel's house, his apartment back at Cal Poly, and he would not answer the door. His roommates let me in, but he would not. He was just, and I can understand he was very hurt. And I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. I kept calling him, texting, like, oh my God, this, that. And that was Saturday afternoon. I started playing World of Warcraft, and Ephraim was on, his character. And he said, hey. And I was like, hey, what's up? He was like, how you doing? I said, I'm a little upset, we really hurt Angel, and like, why would you do that? Why would you kiss me and all this stuff? And he's like, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. But then he started hitting on me, Ephraim, and he was basically, sorry, my nose itches. He started hitting on me, and he was like, well, he doesn't have to know, and, like, I like you, and, maybe we could do something again. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, you have a girlfriend. This is Angel. I was like, he's supposed to be your best friend. And I wanted to try to record our little conversation, but it went too high up and I couldn't get the recording. So then I was like, you know what, maybe I'm going to tell him I'll bring him like his bowl back or something and coerce him into saying something again. And I couldn't get him to say anything again. But I guess he was like, oh, she likes me because she wanted to bring something back and blah, blah. I don't know, whatever. But then Sunday came, and again, Angel wouldn't talk to me. And I think I went to his work on Monday. And I don't know. He was avoiding me. He said, I don't want to talk about it now. And I think by Wednesday, I went back, and then he was like, oh, hey, babe. And it made me cry. And I told him, like, I'm so sorry about what had happened. And so Angel and I talked about it, and I told him, I said, Ephraim raped me. And I said, he told me. And I said, I don't want you talking to him. Like, I don't want anything to do with your friends anymore. And he, I remember Angel he didn't know what to say. And I guess he continued talking to them for a while. And every time he would bring up, like, oh, Ephraim wants to go out. I said, why are you still talking to them? And then I think by this time I did my leave of absence, and I ended up back in Apple Valley, and I made a friend, Andrew Perez. And Andrew and I were kind of no, this is way later. I'm sorry. Let me think of the chronological order. When I was still with Angel, he was still talking to Ephraim, and I was like, don't talk to him. And then I think I was visiting, See, I'm trying to remember the logical order. I think I met Andrew shortly before. Oh, I think I met Andrew when Angel was gone for 3 months in Colorado for his internship or something. And I think something happened because I ended up cheating on Angel when he left. And I said, I can't do this. So we broke up. But we still talked all the time, you know. And I eventually moved back to, well, you know, Angel was still talking to him. And I was like, whatever, you know, I guess if you want to be friends with him, like, I can't stop you, but I don't like you talking to Ephraim because he raped me. And then I told Andrew Perez about it when I had moved back home around 25, my leave of absence. And he, um, Andrew and I were at Victor Valley Mall, and I literally had just told him what had happened with Ephraim, and Andrew was ticked. He was really upset. Andrew's born February 7th. He's an Aquarius. And he has already been to jail. He kind of is like Richard, actually. Anyway, and we were walking out of the Barnes and Noble, and I see Ephraim walk in. I guess Ephraim had gotten a house with Amber in Victorville. And I thought that was weird because he was living in San Bernardino. And then the minute I'm back in Apple Valley, all of a sudden he's in Apple Valley. So, and I froze. And Andrew was like, what's wrong? And I was like, nothing. Because I knew Andrew was like me. We were very hot headed. And he said, no, you saw something. What happened? And Ephraim saw me see him. So Ephraim ran and hid behind a bookshelf, and he walked the other way. And he walked the other way so he could pass me and Andrew. And I said, Andrew, don't do anything. And he's like, you saw the guy that you were just talking about, didn't you? And I said, yes. And he said, where is he? I said, please, Andrew. I was like, you don't need to go back to jail for me. And I pointed, I was like, look, he's leaving. Let him leave. And I said, just come with me. Let's leave. And so we left. And then as I talked to Angel again, you know, months went by. And I told, well, that same day I called Angel and I told him what happened. And I said, are you still talking to him? He said, yeah. And I said, you know, I really don't feel comfortable with you talking to him. I said, I told you he raped me. And I think I don't remember when I did. I think I still had Ephraim's number. I still had Ephraim's number. And I think I texted him and I said, if you contact me or Angel again, I will press charges against you. So he left Angel alone for a whole year because that's how long the statute of limitations is for rape. And then he had David, Angel's brother, contact him and say, oh, you know, Ephraim's really upset about what he did. Really, because he didn't apologize to me, the person he raped. They just wanted to get back in Angel's graces. And Angel, I think Angel told him, like, just leave me alone. Just stop. And Ephraim, Doug, and Daryl went around claiming that I wanted it. Oh, she was asking for it. No, they were jealous of my relationship with Angel. I was so head over heels for Angel. I only saw Angel. I only saw Angel. Nobody could change that. And Angel only saw me, and no one can change that. We were so rock solid. And it was like everybody wanted to break it. So the years went by, and then I guess Angel still stayed friends with Doug and Daryl, and he was like, well, I'm just never going to bring a girl back. And I was like, well, you have a new girlfriend. Like, you can't bring her there. And even when he got his new girlfriend, I was telling him, get rid of the things that I have made you to make her comfortable. I never stopped Angel from his path if he wanted to be happy. That's how much I loved him. That's how much I do love him. That even though he still wanted to be friends with these people that hurt me, I wasn't going to attack him for it. you know, and he wouldn't be, he, as far as I knew, he didn't hang out with them anymore. Yeah. But yeah, his Ephraim's family was already so embedded in Angel's family, so they lied to them, said that I guess was a prostitute or whatever, and eventually they convinced Angel of this stuff. But I remember when Angel wasn't producing a child, his mother was making him feel bad. And she was like, "Well, what about that one girl, Jackie? Oh, now all of a sudden you want him to be with me. Now, after you were racist and treated me like crap and was like, oh, well, you don't know anything about the Hispanic culture. So ask Angel. Angel didn't even speak Spanish when she was trying to make me feel bad. I spoke Spanish before Angel did. And it was my fourth language. That woman was so racist. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because that was a situation that happened. And I always loved Angel. He was number one. I was always about him. His friends were disgusting. And then I remember Doug called me and said, "Oh, well, I have a girlfriend now, but you can hang out with me whenever she's gone." Because I still played World of Warcraft and we were texting on there. And I was like, you know what? You've got problems. And I just blocked everybody. And then they would make new characters and try to talk to me. And I wouldn't give them the time of day. They'd be like, "What's your number?" I was like, block. They really tried to stalk me on there. So, and then when I created newer characters, obviously they didn't know those characters. But yeah, David worked with Ephraim, Doug, and Daryl to try to get Angel to come back. David also would make Angel feel like he was gay. I remember Angel would always ask me, "Is that gay?" I said, "Why do you think that having emotions is gay? Why do you think that asking that is gay?" I said, "You're not gay." He said, "I'm just asking." But it was because David would make him feel bad. And Patty, she was she had problems, anger problems. One time, Ray Ray was getting a donut. He was already a fat child. She was fat. He was eating a bunch of sugar. He was just a curious child. He was a real good kid. And she would, Angel was telling him, "No, no, no, Ray Ray, you can't have that donut." So all I did was follow suit. We were at Angel's parents' house when his parents were still together in San Bernardino. And Patty was walking by when Ray Ray tried again, and I said, "Oh no, sweetie, you can't have that." And she got in my face. She's all, "You can't tell my son what to do. Don't tell my son anything." And I looked at her, and I remember, because I have respect. I'm in somebody else's home. I turned to Angel and I said, "Angel, you need to deal with her." I said, "Angel told him not to have any candy." I said, not to have any sweets. I said, "I'm just doing what Angel did." "Well, you can't tell him." And I said, "I just did what Angel did. I'm leaving the room now. Angel, you need to deal with her." And I walked out because I was like, I walked away. I think I was still in the room. And I was just heated because I was like, this fat fucking bitch, excuse my language, she really thought she was something. I remember she got a car and it got burnt up by her baby daddy. Karma is a bitch, isn't it? And then I remember he stole everything in her apartment, and all he left was Ray Ray there. Well, you get what you sow, don't you? Patty was like Jessica, into gangs, doing stupid stuff. I think Angel resonated more with his brother that was in New Jersey, more than the rest of the family. He sounded so happy when he would visit. The kids loved him. I could hear it. I would call him and I would hear the kids and he would be laughing. Please protect yourself, Angel. These people are crazy. They're going to arrest him because he is too smart for his own good, like me. Please protect yourself.